Welcome to Teaching Truth. Wall-to-wall people. That's the theme for our reflections this week as we're digging into the narrative of Nehemiah chapter 3. Nehemiah chapter 3 is laced with the detail of those who were involved in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem and the locations at which they worked. And the interesting thing is that there was a pattern to the work. Yesterday we looked at the purpose of the work. The purpose of the rebuilding of the walls was not just to put a nice wall together, but was ultimately and primarily for the glory of God. And the interesting thing is that Nehemiah was a leader, a master bricklayer, a clerk of works, a project manager who not only planned his work, but who worked his plan. And the way that Nehemiah did it is an example for all of us, whether we be a leader or a follower, to follow. Nehemiah was one who planned his work and worked his plan. There was nothing haphazard about rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah just didn't say, well, off you go guys, just go and find some bricks and stones and just start rebuilding wherever you fancy. No, there was great detail and attention given over by Nehemiah to the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. Read through Nehemiah chapter 3 and you'll see that around 38 individual workers are mentioned and 42 different groups are identified. And doubtless there were many more workers whom Nehemiah did not mention and who hasn't named, but whose labours were none the less important. But each worker, whether they were named or not named, each worker was assigned a place and a space and a task to do. It was the evangelist D.L. Moody who said this, that a great many people have got a false idea about the church. They have got an idea that the church is a place to rest in, to get into a nicely cushioned pew and contribute to the charities, listen to the minister, and do their share to keep the church out of bankruptcy. The idea of work for them, actual work in the church, never enters their mind. What was true then in the world of D.L. Moody is sadly true in many church circles today. We live very much in a consumerist culture, a consumerist society, a give me culture, a teach my children culture. And the reality is that many of us, if we're honest, see very few people actually getting their hands dirty in practical terms. It's often 20% of the people, as the saying goes, doing 80% of the work in church life. And yet the narrative of Nehemiah teaches us, indeed challenges us, that all of us have been assigned a place and a space and a task to do. And I want to challenge you today. What has God called you to do? What has God gifted you with? What tools has God placed, as it were, in your spiritual toolkit that you can use to build for His glory? In 1 Corinthians 12 and 14, the Apostle Paul compares individual Christians to members of the human body. Each member has its place. Each member is important. And the people who were mobilized by Nehemiah in Jerusalem to help rebuild the walls did so simply because they obeyed the leader. They followed the leader. They kept their eyes on the same goal and worked together for the glory of God. Neither the enemy outside the city nor the practical difficulties inside the city distracted them from their God-given task. Do not be distracted, like the people, from the task that God has given to you. There was a pattern to the work and everyone was involved in it. The word repair in Nehemiah 3 is used 35 times, and it means to make strong and to make firm. And what that means is that Nehemiah wasn't interested in a quick fix. Let's just get the wall up as quickly as we can, guys. Let's just shove it together and just hope that it stands firm. No. Nehemiah was building, remember, to the glory of God. And therefore there was a conscientiousness, a diligence, and a commitment to do the job well. And therein lies a challenge and a lesson for us. Are we diligent? Are we conscientious? Are we committed to doing whatever it is to the glory of God and to doing it well, not in a haphazard or a quick fix or a that'll do type way? The gates of Jerusalem had been destroyed by fire. And so Nehemiah ordered timber, not from the local timber merchants, but from the king's forest, and had new gates constructed. The gates were important for the safety of the people and the control of who went in and who went out of the city. And we see even here that Nehemiah chooses well the materials that he is going to use. Locks and bars are mentioned 5 times in verse 3 and in verses 13 to 15. Locks refer to the sockets into which the bars were fitted, thus making it difficult for anyone to prise open the gates. And therefore it isn't enough that we simply do the work of God, but that what we do is protected from the enemy. You see, even down to the detail of how things were constructed, the locks and the bars and the timber and the repairing and where people worked and who they were working with and what gate they worked at. All of this was planned by Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a good and godly and visionary leader. Nehemiah was a man with a vision for wall-to-wall rebuilding. Hundreds would have been working on the wall, but nothing was done in a haphazard way. The lesson for us today is to be like Nehemiah, to never do anything for the glory of God in a haphazard way, but to, as it were, source our materials, our resources well, to build well, to be diligent, to be conscientious, to plan well and to deliver well. For when we do that, we will not only build strong walls metaphorically, but we will build in a way that honors God and in a way that God will honor.